Burt Bacharach, who's died at the age of 94. Absolutely prolific with that roll call of hits, 73 top 40 hits. In our next edition, we'll be talking to Dave Davies, founder member of The Kinks. He tweeted a little earlier today, really sad day this, probably one of the most influential songwriters of our time. He was a great inspiration. Rest in peace, Burt Bacharach. So we'll talk to Dave here on the programme in about 45 minutes time. Hopefully you can join me then. Bye for now.
All right, Nomsa Masayeko for us in Cape Town, thank you for that update. Thank you. Now, the updates from Turkey and Syria are quite grim. The death toll has now passed 19,000, but only a fraction of the devastated areas have been searched. There's also a secondary challenge now of keeping survivors alive. Thousands of survivors have been spending a third night in freezing temperatures as low as -7, with hope fading for many trapped under the rubble. Food supplies are dwindling, and people like Ilka desperately want help for their family. He says their building collapsed and people remain trapped inside. Now, without shelter, water, fuel or electricity, the World Health Organization fears many survivors could yet lose their lives, leading to a second disaster that could even be worse. Now, is there any prospect for an end to the violence in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo? At the weekend, there was a meeting of East African leaders to discuss the crisis with a call for an immediate ceasefire. But those talks in Burundi join a growing list of initiatives that seem to have achieved little. Fighting continues to intensify in the North Kivu region, with violence blamed on the M23 armed group, which has in recent weeks taken several towns. There are also protests against the presence of UN peacekeepers and the East African Regional Force, widely criticized for failing to stop rebel attacks. Well, I've been speaking to Richard Moncrief from the International Crisis Group and started by asking if the various troops could have done things differently. Now, Eritrea's President Isaias Afewerki has dismissed reports of alleged war crimes committed by his troops during the conflict in northern Ethiopia. In rare comments about the war, Mr. Afewerki said the claims were part of a disinformation campaign by detractors of the peace deal reached between the Ethiopian government and Tigrayan forces. Rights groups allege Eritrean soldiers have committed atrocities. President Afewerki was speaking in Kenya following a meeting with his counterpart William Ruto. Emmanuel Igunza has more. On still to come, the rush to banks in Nigeria continues as the Supreme Court temporarily suspends Friday's deadline to stop using old banknotes. Welcome back. You're watching Focus on Africa. Now, Nigeria's Supreme Court has temporarily suspended Friday's deadline to stop using old banknotes, which had caused a cash crisis in the country. Banks have not been releasing enough of the new Naira notes, and this has led to desperate and chaotic scenes as people tried to get their hands on the notes. There were fights at ATMs, protests and mob attacks on commercial banks. Nkechi Ogbona has more from Lagos. Now, the World Bank has told the BBC that growing insecurity in Somalia could wipe out the recent economic gains it's made. Somalia, which hopes to be readmitted to the international financial system, has been going through an IMF-led debt relief program that's aimed at having its foreign debt irrevocably reduced. Now, the World Bank's Vice President for East and Southern Africa, Victoria Kwakwa, spoke to our Africa business editor, Zawadi Mudibo, who started by asking her what was the biggest risk to Somalia. You're watching Focus on Africa. It's time now for some sport, and Mimi has all the latest.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, Africa's quest for a third Club World Cup final appearance ended after European champions Real Madrid beat Egypt's Al Ahly 4-1 in the semi-final on Wednesday. More on the BBC Sport Africa website. Sophie, that's all the sport.
Thank you, Mimi. Thank you. Now, just a quick look at our top story today on Focus on Africa. The updates from Turkey and Syria continue as the death toll has now passed 19,000. but only a fraction of the devastated areas have been searched. Now, many had to spend a third night outdoors in the freezing conditions, some rummaging in the ruins of buildings to find wood to burn to keep them warm. The World Health Organization is warning of a secondary disaster if survivors don't receive more help. Now, in the meantime, a UN aid convoy has reached the opposition-held part of northwest Syria, the first time since the earthquakes hit the region. The supplies arrived from Turkey. The border crossing has been closed due to damaged roads. Well, of course, you can get in touch with me and some of the team on social media. I'm at Ikenye, and that's Focus on Africa for now. Thanks for your company. Bye.